The following podcast is recorded and produced by Emerge, a media creators co-op, in affiliation with the network at bicbp-radio.com.
Hello and welcome to episode 34 of the Big YAC Podcast. I'm Mike Perretto. Alongside me, as always, is Nico Salambenny. How are you, Nico?
I'm doing great. How are you, Mike?
I'm all right. A little bit of a break in the weather. Had that ice storm last week. Had the surprise blizzard on Monday.
It was weird to see some sunshine.
24-hour blizzard. So today was actually just nice change of pace. Didn't have to worry about getting to the podcast studio, and it's only a couple-minute drive for us. So, we have a lot to unpack tonight. Not
wild
too much.
Week in the NFL.
Wild week in NFL.
Literally 2 weeks after the Super Bowl, and there is still news going on.
Yeah, there was a lot of news that went on yesterday, and a little bit today. The biggest storyline we got to talk about is Jalen Carter.
That happened.
Unfortunately. There was an incident that happened, I believe, in 2021, 2022, involving some reckless driving, and there's a warrant out for his arrest. We don't really want to get into too much detail about it, but this is potentially big because
this is huge for Chicago. We just covered Chicago last week in our number one overall pick analysis, and something big that we talked about was the Colts trading up to number one with Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And, there was some speculation that Chicago really liked Jalen Carter going into the draft process. And I think now Chicago is even more inclined to trade down. Because if, hey, they still want Jalen Carter after this news, I can almost guarantee you they can get him at 4. Mm-hmm. But there's no other player really for me at number one. If you're not taking a quarterback, it's worth the haul that you would get for the number one overall pick. So we'll break it down with the Colts more later on, but this is huge news for Chicago.
Yeah, and you saw something like this happen with a guy like Laramie Tunsil.
Yep.
It wasn't like the news where it got broke during the draft. Like, that's some of the craziest things I've ever seen. It was like mid-draft, you see this video go boop, and it's just like, oh. Yeah. But this gives it's about a month and a half away from the draft. But it's big implications because there's already a little bit of character issues with Jalen that a lot of NFL teams are speculating. I mean, I don't know if it's true or not. I don't want to say it is, but you just put this situation that was presented. It's just very unfortunate.
It all plays into it.
Yeah, it all plays into it. It's unfortunate it had to happen at this point of time when he's the NFL draft's next month. I don't know. I don't really want to get too big into it, because we don't really specifically know all the details. But as far as we know, this could impact his draft status tremendously. No matter how big it goes, how little it goes, you don't really want to see something like this happen to somebody this young, this promising, But we'll see where it goes. It was just there's a warrant out for his arrest today, and we could all just wait and see what happens with that. But speaking of the draft process, it's another episode of our Big YAC War Room. We're going to be breaking down the AFC South tonight. We did the NFC North last week, and then also it's Combine Week.
This is huge. This is measurements are happening today and into tomorrow as well. I think today is the early arrival for some of the players. But before we get into that, I also want to ask you about the Jalen Ramsey news. Okay. There's a potential, but the Rams are open to trading Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah.
Where do you think he could go?
Ooh. Well, we talked about this team last week. Honestly, if I'm the Detroit Lions, I'm making a call for this guy. You pair him up with Jeff Okudah. I mean, and we talked about that last week. They need a cornerback. They have 2 first-round picks. I would probably, if you're sitting there and you're planning
take your late one and trade for Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah, if you're already in your plans, you have cornerback as one of your top 3 needs, and you plan on going that position at one of those 2 first-round picks, you might as well, send him the 16th overall pick. I believe that's what they have. Or no, 18th. 18th overall pick is their second pick, and then the 6th. I would send him the 18th overall pick and say, hey, here's Jalen Ramsey. Welcome to the Detroit Lions.
Yes, sir.
I could see Detroit. Who else?
The Giants.
Who else? The Giants are also a team you got to look out for because they need to bolster up their secondary a little bit. I mean, I would love.
Don't say it.
I'm not gonna say it.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
I'm not gonna say it.
The Bills are
I
already
wanna
20
say it.
million under.
I know. I want to say it, but we can't afford them. We can't afford them. I see a lot of people say that they're a sleeper team, but I think we have way more other needs.
Too much happening.
Too much happening.
Too much happening on the defense for us to have that luxury. I want it, in Madden, probably.
And you want to know who's another team I want to look out for is the Miami Dolphins.
That's true.
Miami Dolphins because Byron Jones went to Twitter. Sounds like he doesn't want to play football anymore, but there's nothing official yet. So
they're suddenly in need of a corner.
they're suddenly needing a cornerback. Xavier Howard and
Noah Igbenogany. Is
Yeah,
that
he's-
really that's the depth chart?
And, we could call up Dame right now, and he would probably say that Noah Igbo is not it.
Speaking of calling up right now, we have a brand new feature coming to the Big YAC podcast.
Should I pick it up? Or?
Pick it up. Bring it in.
All right. So we found this. Mr. Moranto had this, it's a telephone. It's a telephone. So if anybody of you guys are watching live, you can call in.
For those of you that don't know what a landline looks
Can
like,
we get a locked-in camera on this? Look at this
well,
thing.
if he puts it down, I can.
He's holding it like he's about to put it on.
He's gonna put it on his
I
head.
want to put it.
So you can zoom in on it.
All right, hold on. I gotta move my stuff. There you go.
Nice awkward camera shot of me
Here we go.
zooming in on it.
Here we go. So this is a phone.
Yeah, that was actually a gift. Someone gave that to my father many years ago when he was the manager at Tops in town of Niagara, and I forget who gave it to him. And it's been sitting in the basement of my dad's house for a long time, and we just decided he needed a new home, so why not bring it to Emerge? And then we have a landline here, so we hope someone watching calls.
Is the graphic up? Can we see the graphic?
The graphic is up.
Great.
Graphic is up.
Graphic is
So,
up.
just as a test,
We got our first call.
Wait, is it you?
it's just me.
Oh.
Disappointed.
Hey, welcome to the Big
Disappointed.
YAC podcast.
I thought we actually had a call. I was like, sitting here like, oh wow, what the heck?
There's people actually watching this show.
So,
So if you get upset with something that Mike or Nico say, you can call and complain, not just comment on the YouTube.
If you guys see the graphic as well, 716-299-0060. Give us a call if you guys have any questions or concerns.
Or make
now
a
taking
donation.
Collins.
It's like a telethon. Like, make it with your donations.
We don't. I don't think we can hear what's going on in the phone.
Not
call.
yet. We're working on that. That's another purchase that I have to make here for, down at Emerge.
The rent man's got to collect before we can
Pay your rent.
I got. If somebody calls, I'll just relay the message.
Yeah, you'll just have to kind of say what they said for now.
Yeah.
But we'll get there. We're gonna be adding that in soon.
Yeah. So we have the combine coming up starting tomorrow. This is what the schedule is looking like. March 2nd, Thursday. We have defensive linemen and linebackers. Friday we have defensive backs. Saturday we have quarterbacks, receivers, tight ends. And Sunday we have running backs and offensive linemen. Nico, who are you most interested to see for this scouting combine?
So, do you want the easy answer?
I want the easy answer.
The easy answer?
Yes.
I'm looking at my boy Sean Tucker out of Syracuse.
Syracuse? Go Orange.
So, Sean Tucker is a fantastic talent. And this year, Syracuse started off hot. They started off real hot. They went 5-0, and I think they got all the way up to 10th or 12th ranked in the country, and then they lost 6 out of their last 7 games. Blew it, and they just stopped using Tucker. They just stopped using him entirely. He probably had, if you look at his stats, he had like 200-yard games, 150 all-purpose yard games, 170 all-purpose yard games for the first 5 games, and it dropped out of nowhere. Me and my dad, we tend to watch all the Syracuse games, or if we don't, we're texting each other during the games. My dad's like, "What happened to Sean? Where's Tucker at? Where's your boy?" And I'm like, "That's a great question. We're gonna have to ask the offensive coordinator."
Yeah.
So his stock dropped a little bit this season due to that. But that being said, I think he can really help his stock here and really show off the athleticism that he has I've seen with my own eyes in the dome and and on TV. So I'm watching Sean Tucker. I'm really excited to see him. But another guy I'm looking out for is Jalen Hyatt. His speed, the wide receiver out of Tennessee. He's a guy that is right now projected to go somewhere like mid to late second rounder, but he could find his way into the first round for sure. With the kind of speed that he has, the talent that he has, he's a guy that can take the top off of defense, and he has a really great opportunity this week to show that off.
Yeah. For me, I mean, well, if you're going Syracuse, nobody from UB is going to the Combine. But next up, TCU, my Horned Frogs, Max Duggan, Davey O'Brien winner, took the TCU Horned Frogs.
He was your sleeper quarterback a couple weeks ago.
My sleeper quarterback, yeah. He brought a team all the way to the national championship game. I think, and you might call me crazy a little bit, but I think he's like a little bit of a smaller version of Josh Allen. Because
that's a big comparison.
That's a big comparison. But like the way he plays is like it's not so much of like he has this rocket arm or anything like that. It's more of like his tenacity, his dual threat ability.
Is he improviser?
He's an improviser. He's an improviser. He I watched the game against Baylor, and he just put the team on his back. Like he's not like considered a running quarterback, but then he starts running and taking off like how Josh does.
That or Russell Wilson too.
Yeah, Russell
Wilson of old, not Broncos Russell
old,
Wilson.
Yeah.
We're talking Seattle.
Not new Russell Wilson, old Russell Wilson. So I mean that's a little bit of a outlandish comparison, but I do see a lot of similarities between the two.
Could you see him being a starter?
I could see him eventually being a starter. I could see him like kind of like a Brock Purdy situation.
Yep.
Where like I think he's a little underrated, and then like a lot of people are saying he's a day 3, day 2 guy, not even getting considered in the day 1.
He's projected into the 6th and 7th round around there.
Yeah, I think he could. Yeah, I think he could go up to a 3rd round. Honestly, I think he has the talent to do that.
I mean, hey, you can kind of take a chance on it. He's 21 years old. Like he's got time to develop and grow. Think about like Jordan Love, someone who's just like been developing for years and years and years. What are they cooking in there? Yeah. I could see a similar projection.
He was a Heisman finalist. He's a Davey O'Brien winner. Like it's just him going 6 or 7. I mean, I just think it's a little,
he's
bit of hate.
Not getting the respect that he deserves.
He's not getting the respect that he deserves. You could say I'm wrong with the Josh Allen comparison. It's not a total comparison. I'm just saying they have the same similarities. But that's a guy to look out for.
What about your boy Quentin Johnston?
Quentin Johnston's a 1st-round pick for sure. He's going 1st-round pick.
Would you say he's the number 1 receiver in this draft? No.
I'm going to say no. I think there's 3 or 4 receivers that are going to go in the 1st round. Quentin Johnston's going to be one of them, but he is not my number 1 guy. My number 1 guy is Jordan Addison.
Okay.
That's my number 1 guy. Jordan Addison is simply dominant.
Yep.
Point blank. Enough said. I'd say like Jordan Addison, he's a 1st-round guy. Jalen Hyatt, your guy that you listed, he's also up there. I'd probably say Zay Flowers, and then give me.
Are you nervous about before you keep going? Are you nervous about Jordan Addison's size going into the combine? 6 foot, 175 pounds, and that's a generous 175 pounds.
Yeah. Here's the thing. You look at Devontae Smith. It's Devontae Smith. Like not the same comparison, but they said the same thing about Devontae. He's too skinny. We just saw him ball out in the Super Bowl.
That's true.
He is my keeper for fantasy football.
Yes,
so
sir. We talked about that in extent.
Yeah, we talked about that. So I'm not too concerned about his size. I mean, obviously you want more of the bulky receivers, but I mean. Listen, my thing is, if he could ball out on the field, his numbers don't lie. His numbers don't lie at all. I'm not too worried about it. I mean, obviously there's concerns. But here's the thing about weight is you could put on the weight eventually. You might not have it, that rookie year, but say you get in the off season, you have a promising rookie year.
15 pounds of muscle on.
You put 15 pounds of muscle on. Now you're looking good. You're almost at that 200 range. That's the thing about weight. Is I'm not that concerned about the weight. If he was, if it was like more of height, like a genetical thing, then yeah, there's more of a concern.
That's true.
But weight, I mean, you could put on the weight. So I'm not too worried about that. Jackson Smith and Jiba from Ohio State. He's a first-round talent guy.
And his stock has fallen for no reason, I feel like, as of late. He was at first, especially at the start of this season, he was projected to be like a top 10 pick.
Right.
He didn't have the greatest, most dominant season, but that's okay. The talent is there, and sometimes the stats don't tell the whole story. I think he's projected to go in the late first, early second. I think NFL GMs and scouts look past that, and I think their grade on him is going to be much higher than what the mock drafters think. So I agree with you. He's definitely a name to look out for.
Another name to watch, receiver-wise, LSU receiver Keyshawn Boutte. He's another guy who's on the cusp of first, second round. You can make the case that he's a first-round pick.
He's going to be a great value pick, too.
Yeah, and those LSU receivers, I mean, you got to take your chances on him because they've been panning out the last 5 years.
Not to name the most obvious one.
Jay Jettas. Yeah. And then just another couple of guys to look out for. I mean, we have a couple of people who are on the podcast that are in the NFL Combine as well.
That's right.
So we have Caleb Farley, our defensive end that we interviewed.
Caleb Murphy.
Or
Caleb Farley is defensive back for the Tennessee Titans.
Caleb Murphy. Wow. Caleb Murphy.
Let's go back to 2023.
Yeah, Caleb Farley. Wow. At least he was an NFL player. Caleb
Plus,
Murphy.
that guy was hilarious on Saturday Night Live. He was.
Oh, yeah. Too many Farleys. So Caleb Murphy, pass rusher, sack leader, NCAA sack leader.
Ted Hendricks Award winner.
Hendricks.
Casually joined us on the podcast.
Casually.
Something small.
Him and Ball State DB Nick Jones. So those two guys, both on the podcast last couple of weeks, they're going to be representing. Caleb Murphy is tomorrow. And then we have Nick Jones on Friday.
That's
so
right.
Two names we're going to look out for. And good luck to you guys.
Let me ask you this about the Combine. So, did you know you could bet on the NFL Combine?
Really?
There are prop bets out. And one of them I'm very interested in that we might have to take to the bank is for the fastest 40 time to be broken.
Yeah.
Right now, the odds, I think, on DraftKings are plus 400 for the time that is John Ross's time of 4.22 in 2017. There's a few guys out there that I think could take that crown.
Yeah.
One of them being Texas A&M running back Devin Akane. Have you seen any of Devin Akane's tape?
I haven't that much. No, I've seen little glimpses.
One word to describe him: speed. He is the fastest person I think in this entire draft class. You want to talk about taking the top off of defense? This guy can. I think he has an unofficial 4.26 or something that I saw like that. Something unbelievable. But I don't know. Would you think that would you take to the bank of plus 400 that the fastest 40 time gets broken?
Yeah, I mean, plus 400 is pretty decent odds. I mean, you could throw a couple dollars on it, and you never know. You never know what could happen because. Like when Chris Johnson broke that record, everybody, that record was so oh no, he's gonna break that again. And then you see, can't think of his name, who just broke it.
John Ross.
John Ross, yeah. You have John Ross, and then he came and not shared it, but broke it, and it's just like whoa. So you never know what could happen. Plus 400, I'd take it to the bank.
Take it to the bank.
For sure.
Some might call me a degenerate for gambling on the NFL Combine, but I look at it as being an investor. I'm investing in these props.
You are a menace to society. You need to be arrested. Other than that, though, with Combine, a couple other guys was looking out for. Some of the DBs. I'd probably say Christian Gonzalez from Oregon. One of the top cornerback prospects. Him and Joey Porter Jr. are two guys that are really battling out to be the first.
Talked about them last week.
Yeah, to be the first DB. Noah Sewell, I'm pretty sure that's Penny Sewell's sibling.
Relative,
something. Yeah. From Oregon, he's a lineman. But, yeah. Will Anderson too. Will Anderson's another name I'm looking out for because with the Jalen Carter news, Will Anderson that stock might go up because he's probably the next man up for best defensive player in the draft.
Even best player.
Yeah.
In general. Also, C.J. Stroud is throwing for the combine.
He is.
That's and Bryce Young is not. So I'm very curious to see in the coming weeks where the rankings start to shake.
Pretty
up.
sure Bryce Young is the only projected first-round quarterback to not throw.
Do you
think he is.
he's too cool for the combine?
Too cool for the combine? No, I mean, he's probably just waiting for his pro day. I mean, but here's my thing, though. If I was in his shoes, I'm taking advantage of that combine. That's such a cool experience. And those guys who we've had on, they talked about it. It's like a surreal.
It's everything. It's
just
everything
surreal
for them.
And we've seen their Instagram stories heading up in today, and they're just taking it all in.
Caleb just posted his measurement photo on his Instagram story, and I'm like, that's pretty cool.
And a guy like him,
talking to us a few weeks ago.
He's a D2 guy.
Mhm.
Maybe before this past season, that his record-setting season, he probably was sitting there what's going to happen? Am I going to go to the NFL draft? Am I going to, go and be in the scouting combine, all this stuff? And then he got blessed and got the invite, and this is just a surreal opportunity. It's just, yeah, if I was Bryce Young, though, I definitely would have taken advantage of the combine because you've seen how it was, a quarterback class like Josh Allen's quarterback class with Baker Mayfield. They ate that combine up, man. Every throw was analyzed, and
That was such a big combine. That was such a big just draft class for quarterbacks back in 2018. Obviously, we now know how they all panned out, but I'm very interested to see how this quarterback class compares to that 2018. Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, and then even guys like Hendon Hooker and, like you said, Max Duggan. Those are all guys that could all be starters in the NFL, hands down. I'm very interested to see kind of where they go and how things shake up. I think all four of those top guys between C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, and Will Levis could all end up as top 10 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I'm very serious when I say that. This draft class is loaded with talent. So I remember thinking back. I think it was the 2016 draft class or the 2014. It was the 2014 draft class that just had so much talent. I think this is going to be another one of those years where, and we're going to see it at the combine, so much talent's on display, and you just want to load up picks for this.
Yeah, because not every college player participates in the Senior Bowl and the East-West Shrine Bowl and the Hula Bowl. The NFL Combine is it's big.
Yeah,
it's a big
huge.
thing. It's a big thing. So obviously pro days are also important, but if I was Bryce Young, I in my personal opinion, I think he should. I'm throwing, but I understand that there's concerns. You want to preserve your shoulder, throwing, all that stuff, not risking injury. But hey, the rest of the quarterbacks are throwing. So if I was sitting there and I'm I'm the only projected first round pick quarterback not throwing, maybe
he just says, hey, I am the projected number 1 overall pick. I don't need my stock to go any higher. The only thing I can do right now is make it lower. So that has also something that you could think about, or if I'm him, I'm thinking about.
Listen, man, Anthony Richards is on the climb. We talked about it last show, so watch out for that man.
That's a bad man.
That's a bad man. So let's get into our War Room segment. We're gonna be doing the AFC South. So first up, we have the Houston Texans. Houston Texans are selecting number 2 and number 12. So they have 2 top 15 picks. Let's take a little look at their roster. Their biggest departures, they have give me one
Jordan
second.
Akins,
Jordan,
tight end.
Yeah, Jordan Akins. They have starting linebacker Kevin Pierre-Lewis, starting safety Jonathan Owens, linebacker, I'm going to butcher this name, I apologize, Agbania Akronakro. Yeah, he's a defensive end. And then it's a couple other key backups, like Rex Burkhead, Philip Dorsett.
Just like the corpses
Rasheem
of old
Green.
Patriots players.
Yeah.
Kyle Allen, Jeff Driscoll, O.J. Howard, Bills legend.
I think this is the year. Their top 3 needs a guy who could throw the ball and a guy who could catch the ball from said thrower. It's just quarterback, the Davis Mills experiment is just, I don't really know what they're planning on doing. He did somewhat exceed expectations for being a late round guy, but it's just, you got DeMeco Ryans now. It's time to turn the page. The AFC South is pretty open. I mean, you have the Jacksonville Jaguars being the surprise team, knocking off Tennessee for the division title. This is the year you start really hitting on these draft picks. I think you go quarterback with that second overall pick for
easy.
sure.
I think that's not even a question. I don't even think I'd even entertain the idea of Will Anderson. Be nice, but right now you need to build for your future, and you can't build for your future without having your starting quarterback. It's the most important position in football. It could be the most important position in sports for an organization.
Right.
I think that they go Bryce Young ultimately. I don't know if C.J. Stroud. A lot can happen in these next couple weeks, but I feel like I can set in stone. I can put in ink that Bryce Young will be the number 2 overall pick.
Yeah. So yeah, if they go Bryce Young, they gotta go quarterback though. I mean, it's just Davis Mills. Head to the bench. Jeff Driscoll, Kyle Allen, the backups are gone.
The train has been derailed.
The train has been derailed.
Davis Mills train.
It's
coming to a permanent stop.
I can't back him up anymore. We're just going to be real here. So Davis Mills head of the bench. It's time
Davis Mills slander. It's welcome now.
It's welcome now. We're not protecting the man. Sorry, Davis, if you're watching, if somehow. So I mean, yeah, Davis Mills won. He's not watching anymore.
He just shut it off. Oh look, we had one less viewer on our show now.
But then with that other pick, with the 12th overall pick, I mean, I think you could look at receiver too. Get your quarterback, get your receiver, knock 2 birds out with 1 first round. The receivers, I mean, Brandon Cooks is still a solid receiver in the NFL. You have John Mechie, who didn't play last year due to some medical issues. Still a
wild card. We don't know.
Wild card. We still don't know.
Anything could happen there.
Yeah, anything could happen there. You have Nico Collins.
My guy.
Up
Nico
and down.
Collins. I think if you surround I don't know if he'll ever be an alpha wide receiver, like a wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
But he'd be the perfect wide receiver 2 or 3 if you give him that superstar on the other side of him.
Yeah. If Brandon Cooks is going to stay around, you got to get a guy who could pair.
Let me ask: is Brandon Cooks going to stay around?
I mean, if I was him personally, I would look elsewhere. I would try to seek a trade.
I think that the Texans are open to offers to him. I could be wrong on that.
Pretty sure I think he tweeted something, or there was some rumors last couple months with Brandon Cooks that he didn't want to be there anymore.
Yeah, they're taking trade calls is the headline.
Yeah, I mean, if he stays there, he stays there. You should get a guy who's a good number 2 complement, because I just don't think Mechie's ready yet. And Nico Collins, no offense, I just don't know if he's the number 2 guy in order for them to make noises in this division. So you get a guy like Quentin Johnson. He's only a couple miles away in Fort Worth, Texas.
Yeah,
backyard guy. Take a flyer on one of those receivers, because they picked 12.
Right.
There's 2 top 15 picks, so you're still in the realm of a lot of these top prospects.
I mean, honestly, I'm even thinking about this. Say you still have your pick of the litter at 12. There are so many good receivers at this top end of the draft.
Mm-hmm.
What if you move back a couple spots and pick up even more ammo for the future?
And that's the thing. When you have multiple first-round picks, you literally have the world at your fingertips.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot of power. Because here's the thing: is you take a look at who's available at quarterback and receiver, their top 2 needs. Carson Wentz is now available. We didn't mention that. Carson Wentz got cut by the Washington Commanders. So,
that happened.
Yeah, he's gone. He's available. So he's probably, technically, if you look at the guys who's on these lists, he's top 3 available free agent quarterback. Derek Carr, Wentz, and I'd probably say maybe Jimmy Garoppolo is 3. That's probably my top 3 best available. Marcus Mariota also, at least, another quarterback to name. So, I mean, you could go one of those guys and not draft Bryce Young, but I wouldn't.
Here's the thing, actually. And I didn't say this at first, and I said put it in ink that Bryce Young is going to be the number 2 overall pick. What if the Colts jump him? What if the Colts at 4 make that trade with Chicago and jump Houston for their guy, how inclined would you be? Say you had, I mean, I don't know where their grades are between Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud, but I feel like the general analysis is both are they're interchangeable. Both are going to end up being great quarterbacks. Do you settle for one of them if the guy that you truly wanted is no longer available, or do you trade back?
I mean, in their spot, they desperately need a quarterback. And here's the thing is they're only at 2. So they say trade up, they get Bryce Young. You still have C.J. Stroud. It depends on what the draft board looks like. They might not even like C.J. Stroud. I mean, we don't really know.
Could be Anthony Richardson or Will Levis.
Could be Anthony
for all we
Richardson.
know.
We've seen crazier things happen in the draft. Colts could trade up and get Anthony Richardson.
That's
first
true.
Pick. And then Bryce Young's still there. I mean, it's just the draft is so interesting. It's so hard to predict, but that's why we're here. We try to give you guys the guidance of what could happen.
We lay all the options out on the table for you.
Yeah. So, I mean, if there is a lot of speculation, Bears are going to trade out of that pick. If they do, it's going to be a guy quarterback most likely. You're sitting at 2. If you're sitting at like 5 or 6, if you're Houston, I would say your guys are off the board. You might trade back, change the direction, something like that. But you're only at 2. I think both of these guys, like Young and Stroud, are going to be up there, or Richardson, or maybe even Will Levis. We don't know. We don't know what their draft boards looks like. So, I still think you take the flyer quarterback if Young goes number 1.
Yep,
we'll see. Other than that, though, I mean, other needs that they could address: defensive line, or old pal Jerry Hughes.
Defensive line, or defensive line.
Yeah. It's Jerry Hughes, our old buddies there. Their D tackles, Malik Collins.
The ghost of Jerry Hughes.
Solid ghost. He didn't do that bad last year.
That's true. I mean, he's always been solid. But age is still a thing. Father time keeps ticking.
Yeah. So, Chronico, their starting defensive end is gone. And then they have starting nose tackle Roy Lopez.
All right.
All right. I mean, defensive line could also be a look too. Maybe if Jalen Carter drops, could
to
be
12,
there. Could be there at 12.
Yeah. Now on the flip side, if I'm Houston Texans, I'm like, let's let the thing play out. But we're still taking him.
Just gotta do your homework.
That's it. That's exactly it.
So, I mean that's Houston. They can go in a lot of different directions. You got those 2 first-round picks. Let's go on to our next team. We have Indianapolis Colts, our 4th overall pick. We're just talking about them, how they're a prime candidate. They're training up for number 1 with the Chicago Bears.
I think this is going to happen.
It's very likely.
Especially with the Jalen Carter news, this just seems more and more inevitable.
Yeah,
this is something I would set in stone.
Yeah, this is something. There's another team that if you want to stay alive in this division and conference, you got to get a quarterback. Matt Ryan wasn't it. They're flip flopping between him, Sam Ehlinger. It's just not working out. They got to get a quarterback.
Right. They got their coach. That they,
Yeah.
Now it's time
offensive coach Sam Steichen.
Mm-hmm.
It's
yeah. Well, and that's a great point. Offensive-minded head coach. They're going quarterback first. There's no surprise there. It's just a matter of who's it going to be and how much are they going to pay for their future.
Yeah, I think you draft a quarterback and then have Sam Ehlinger backup, or have Matt Ryan or Nick Foles still around to be a backup. Matt Ryan is still technically under contract with them, so we'll see where that goes. Other than that, their top departures, Indianapolis, Unique Ngakoue, Bobby Okereke, 2 big pass rushers on this team. Starting safety Rodney McLeod, he's a little bit of a veteran, but he's still a starter on this team. Starting kicker Chase McLaughlin is going. They also have starting receiver Paris Campbell, and they have receiver Ashton Doolin, who comes around here and there. So if the Colts got to go quarterback. First round, it's obvious. I mean, it's the most glaring need. Other than that, you go pass rusher. You get somebody to replace Ngakoue if you don't resign him. I mean, do you resign Unique Ngakoue? Do you think he's done enough with Indianapolis
I think
to
so,
earn himself a contract?
It just depends on the market and how it plays out. I feel like Nico Ngakoue is one of those players that ends up getting forgotten about, but he's just consistently solid. He doesn't need to be like that headliner. I kind of think of like Frank Clark, where it's like those are just solid players that just come in, they do their job, they have stats, but you don't hear him as much. I think if he'll test the water, and we'll see. I think if the deal's right for Indy, that they'll re-sign him. But if he's getting upwards of close to $20 million, which I don't think is going to happen, but you never know. Christian Kirk got his bag up last year.
Yeah.
And so, I think it could happen, but it all depends on what his market's looking like.
He is, so with the free agent market, just a quick little glance. I mean, on Spot Track, he's listed as the third-ranked pass rusher, edge rusher. I mean, that's up there, and he's about to be 28, so he's not that old. So he's still got a couple of years of prime left. Yeah, he's still got some years left. I mean, the guys in front of him that they have listed: Robert Quinn, who turns 33 this year; Brandon Graham, who's 35 this year.
I mean, hey, you got 10 sacks.
You got 10 sacks. The only other guys who have like some real competition to him, I think, are Jadeveon Clowney and Matt Ioannidis.
Yep.
And so I think he has a strong market for pass rushers who aren't that old.
Spot Track has him at a market value of around $13 million a year. Do you think that he'll get more than that?
I think that's about fair. I mean, 10 sacks. I mean,
10 sacks.
10 sacks is 10 sacks.
That's that's kind of like
There's teams who I don't even think had 10 sacks.
That's the litmus test for a defensive end. It's like, okay, is he a 10 sack a year player or is he not?
Yeah.
That's the golden line, and he's right there.
I think that's fair. I think like the 13 to 15 range is good for him. Anything above that, I think, is pushing it.
Now, do you think he'll sign with just out of curiosity, do you think he would take like a 10 or an $11 million deal to go with a contender at this point in his career?
I don't know. I mean, looking at who he's played for, I don't know. If I were him, I would definitely consider it. I mean, that's only a couple. This is kind of crazy to say. It's only a couple less thousand.
Yeah.
You gotta sacrifice. But I mean, I don't know. I'm not going into a role where I'm a rotational guy. If I'm still an every down DN for sure. But I would consider it.
He has bounced around so much, and for a player of his caliber, remember when we were all calling for him to go to the Bills? He went from drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2016, but then he spent time all in one season, or actually, okay, I'll say in the span of 3 seasons, he spent time with Baltimore Ravens, the Minnesota Vikings, the Las Vegas Raiders, and now the Colts. Does he kind of complete the cycle and keep going, or
I think he needs to start settling down a little bit next couple of years. He needs to sign a contract, stay there a couple of years, really, continue to do his thing. And yeah, I think he just needs to settle down for a couple of years like he did in Jacksonville. I mean, it's not his fault he's getting traded this often, but try it. He's a free agent.
Hot potato. He's a hot potato.
So I mean, here's the thing: is like you if you get another pass rusher, your pass rush is still dominant. You still have Kawhi Pay, who's a promising defensive end. You had DeForest Buckner, interior. Grover Stewart, solid nose tackle. And then your linebackers got Shaq Leonard. And then if you sign Bobby
and Zaire
Okereke,
Franklin. Let's not forget about Zaire Franklin, who had a phenomenal year filling in for Shaq Leonard. And now you have both of them back.
Yeah. So you could keep the
Syracuse grad, by the way.
Syracuse grad.
Zaire Franklin.
You could keep the foot on the gas pedal and get another pass rusher to replace one of those guys. But bottom line, get a quarterback. I'd probably even dabble in receiver a little bit, honestly. I mean, I know the quarterback play wasn't promising, and Michael Pittman didn't have the year a lot of people thought he was going to have. But Michael Pittman, I think, matched with a good quarterback, is going to have a good year. Paris Campbell, if you want to resign him, he's cheap, so you can resign him as well. But I don't know if he's a consistent starting receiver, to be honest.
I think he goes to a contender.
Yeah, I think he could go to a contender. Alec Pierce, though, I think has earned himself a starting role on this team. But if you get another guy, you get a quarterback, and then say like round 2, if one of those first round guys drop to second, round pick because they pick early in the second round too. I mean, take a little waiver on them.
Yes, sir.
On that, but get a quarterback first round, receiver second round. It's kind of like how Houston is. You need to get a quarterback and a receiver to pair each other. Houston's more of a desperate need for a receiver, but
I mean, it works. It's a method that works.
yeah,
You have Joe Burrow to Jamar Chase. You have Jalen Hurts to, then A.J. Brown in the third year. But you get a young receiver and a young quarterback. You go, to a lesser extent, Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs.
yeah.
If you find a guy that you have such a high note for, then you take him to develop your quarterback.
Yeah. Alrighty. So that's Indianapolis Colts. Let's move on. We have next
Tennessee Titans at number 11.
the Tennessee Titans at number 11. They're a very interesting team. We projected them to be the NFC South or AFC South winner last year. And they started off kind of strong, and then they completely collapsed. Injury
Did
bug.
they start off strong? They got absolutely
wrecked by the
manhandled
Bills.
by Buffalo.
Yeah, but I mean, their record the first half of the season wasn't bad. The second half of the season, I'm pretty sure they lost like 6 out of their 7. I want to say it was like around there. And the injury bug just hit them like a bus. And Ryan Tannehill was gone. Malik Willis was forced, and Josh Dobbs were forced into these like roles that they've never really been in. Even Josh Dobbs being a vet, I mean, it's been some time since he's been an NFL starting quarterback.
He's played like 60 starting snaps in his entire career.
Exactly. So he just doesn't have that much experience yet. You have Malik Willis from Liberty. I mean, also coming in there cold turkey. Just I don't know. I don't know what they were really doing with Malik Willis last year when he was in there. It just looked like they were capping a lot of his.
They were limiting him
So much. It's just I don't know. It's not a way to win football. I don't know. At the end of the season, they should have let him unleash a little bit more. But I don't know. Ryan Tannehill's still under contract. What do you do here? I mean, Tennessee,
you have to go O-line. I mean, your O-line is absolutely
offensive line is
tattered.
You cut Taylor Lewan, so you don't have Taylor Lewan. This
Your
is
next,
their
yeah. Go ahead. Say
yeah. This is
their
the
next
projected starting line. They don't have a left tackle.
Literally,
both of their left tackles on their depth chart. We're looking at their depth chart right now. Both of their left tackles are not on the team. Starting guard Aaron Brewer, Ben Jones, solid veteran. Okay. Nate Davis is
that's
a free agent.
Yep.
So the backup is Jordan Ruse.
Who to ruse that guy?
Yeah, I don't know who that guy is. And then right tackle is Nicholas Petit Frere. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. And then the backup tackle is Jamarco Jones. That is a abysmal offensive line.
This sounds like a hockey roster.
Sounds like a hockey roster.
Sounds like hockey names.
Yeah, so you got here's the thing. If you keep Ryan Tannehill at quarterback, because there is speculation his time in Tennessee could be up. If you keep Ryan Tannehill, you got to go line. That's first priority.
Yep.
That is first priority.
And even so, you have Derrick Henry, and he covers up a lot of deficiencies of this O-line, but he's getting older.
He's getting older, yeah.
Time's going by.
Time's a ticking.
Exactly, and you have to build off of your strong suit. I don't think either Malik Willis or Ryan Tannehill alone are going to win you a Super Bowl. You're going to have to ride on the coattails of Derrick Henry, and you have to essentially build around Derrick Henry. Maybe you take a guy in the second round like Hendon Hooker and build your future there. Maybe you still see that there's something in Malik Willis. You just don't know yet. But you have to build around your superstar in Derrick Henry right now.
Yeah.
Build up the O-line. Get a receiver that can block. Get a really good blocking receiver.
Yeah.
Because you just have to build on your strengths if you are in win now.
Yeah. So who would you say they should go at this number 12 pick? 11. I'm sorry. Number 11 pick. I mean, you go Peter Skoronski if he's here.
I would probably
go
go
literally
Skoronski.
outside of center, like any guard or tackle, like the best available guard or tackle, you got to go. So Skoronski is there, you go Skoronski.
I agree.
Maybe you could move back and get a guy like Osiris Torrance from Florida.
I'm looking at maybe even Paris Johnson. I mean,
Paris Johnson.
He switched over to left tackle,
Yeah.
and he didn't allow a sack on 449 pass blocking snaps.
University of the Ohio State.
The Ohio State. He's a big physical guy. We interviewed recently Chandler Zavala out of NC State, and he was talking about the O-line. You just have to be a mauler. You have to have that killer instinct, and Paris Johnson has that instinct.
Yeah.
I think he's a guy that you could go with at 13.
Another guy I'm looking at is John Michael Schmitz.
Or 11, sorry.
John Michael Schmitz from Minnesota. Another guy who stock could rise up to 11, or again, you trade back late round, and if say you're one of your guys like Paris Johnson or Skoronski aren't there, you move back, and you get a guy like Torrance or John Michael Schmitz. John Michael Schmitz is another one of those guys who could play anywhere on the offensive line. He's mostly a guard, but you could put him anywhere. And they, as I said, they need help everywhere except center, and even center, you might as well look for a future guy because Ben Jones is getting up there in age. So offensive line for sure, number one. Some of their key losses, as you said, so starting guard Nate Davis is gone. They only have 2 offensive linemen on the roster. Starting inside linebacker David Johnson, who was a special teams guy turned inside linebacker.
The thing about the Titans is not really, they're losing a few starters. They have to rebuild the O-line. It's the amount of depth that
their
they're
depth
losing.
is shot. Like, if you take a look at their depth, it's just like there's so many names that are just going.
You could tell that, this past year was going to be their Super Bowl window. It looks, just based off the contracts.
Yeah.
All these players are signed up to end this season. And so, like I said, if you try to win now, you build around the O-line, but regardless, you still need to because, you might be in rebuild mode.
The game is won at the line of scrimmage. I will say this. We talked about it in that interview with
Chandler.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm like looking at names. I have so many names going through my head right now. Damn. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Chandler. A couple of depth guys. Like Terrell Basham's pass rusher that's coming off the bench. Is a name that is a good piece of depth. They also have like Terrence Mitchell at cornerback, Lonnie Johnson, another cornerback. It's just a couple of guys. Mario Edwards. There's just some backup guys. They might not be that expensive, but you just gotta, watch with your depth situation.
They also lose Austin Hooper. But me personally, I'm really high on Chiggy Okonkwo. I think he's gonna step in just fine, and he's real athletic. I think of. I'm trying to think of who came out of Tennessee a few years ago. Went to the Patriots. Jonnu Smith. He reminds me a lot of Jonnu Smith in that athleticism area, and I think he's a guy that you can kind of build around at tight end. But this depth is shot. They're gonna have to either trade back and just accumulate picks in the backgrounds, or take that guy at 11, take your super, whether it be Paris Johnson, whether it be Pete Skoronski, and then you trade back and rebuild your depth.
So, another question. Should you unleash Malik Willis and give away Ryan Tannehill, or do you think
I think you have to see what you got in Malik Willis. He's a rookie. It's only been his, not even a full year as a starter. So I think for the draft capital he spent on him, yes, it was a 3rd-round pick, but you still have to build around him. And you have to see what you have and see if there's a future to invest in him. And he was last year a top quarterback in the draft. So you have to see what's there, I think.
Yeah, it's something to look at potentially. Ryan Tannehill, it's just the play has been up and down for sure.
Yeah.
And he's been injured as well. So definitely see. I do agree Malik Willis does need a little bit of time to shine, but if he's not ready, he's not ready. Don't force it. So you still got a guy like Ryan Tannehill, a solid vet. So, let's move on to the Jacksonville Jaguars, one of the big surprises of this past year. We thought they're going to be a contender, but didn't really expect them to take the whole division and get to the divisional round of the playoffs. That was, I'm pretty sure for a lot of people, that was a surprise. The thing about Jacksonville is you take a look at this roster, and there is not a lot of holes in this roster.
They are a good team. They've been building quietly.
Yeah.
They had the number 1 overall pick 2 years in a row. That helps. And then everything just kind of started to mesh.
Mm-hmm.
You take a look at their starting lineup, like you said, and they're not losing much. Evan Ingram is a pending free agent, but right now talks are that they're going to have a multi-year deal panned out. Marvin Jones, you lose, but I mean he's like 50, so
He's like 50.
it's all
Wow.
good. And then you're losing your right tackle, Jawan Taylor, and that leaves you with no right tackles on your roster.
Yeah.
But this is where the draft comes in. This is where free agency comes in. I think their biggest need right now would be their offensive line. They're in a similar boat to the Tennessee Titans. But you look at their starting defense, and every single starting defensive player is back.
Yeah. My thing is, so you did talk about the offensive line. Jawan Taylor, I feel like is a guy you really got to, he's a solid guy. He's a second-round guy a couple years ago.
Again, it all depends on his market.
All depends on the market. Jawan Taylor, I would try to get back. Evan Ingram had a breakout season again. So it's just,
I think they get the deal done here.
Evan Ingram has to come back. Chris Manhertz, Canisius College.
Yes, sir.
Graduate.
Mhm.
He's a free agent. So we'll see. He's a backup. We'll see what happens there. Marvin Jones, though, I think you could comfortably let Marvin Jones walk and then ride with Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and even get like a third round, fourth round guy and develop him into like a number 3 receiver. They're in that position where they could do that. I mean, Travis Etienne is also a good piece in the passing offense as well. My biggest need, honestly, for Jacksonville is their defensive line. As you said, they are returning. You have Roy Robertson Harrison, who's solid, but Devon Hamilton and I'm going to butcher this again, Folorunso Fatukasi, interior defensive lineman as well. And then you have a couple backup guys like Adam Gotsis and Corey Peters. A couple of years ago, these are some starters, but they've gotten a little bit older and they've fallen off a little bit. They run a 3-4 defense. So that starting D-line is a bunch of big dudes. They're not going to be your fast pass rushers. That's where Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker are on the outside linebackers. So I think, take a flyer at some interior defensive line, some 3-4 defensive ends, like a nose tackle. I think either you can't go wrong with building the line when you're a team like Jacksonville and you got into the divisional round of the draft. So if I'm them, they're picking 24.
Yep.
So they're picking 24. So they're at the later round of the draft, and it's kind of like how we're talking about Tennessee, how they can trade back and get some of these interior offensive linemen,
They
like you
just
said.
have a couple holes to fill, really.
Yeah. So line, you could go offensive line too if they wanted to, but I'm looking at the defensive line, some interior guys.
I mean, if I'll ask you this: if Brian Breesy is still there at pick 24, do you take him?
I would definitely select Brian Breesy there. Brian Breesy's a name to look out for.
A name that I think that could follow them in the second round would be Siaki Ika out of, I think, if going off of memory, off of Baylor. Yep.
Yeah.
He's a really solid defensive lineman, and I think he's a name that could rise. But I think he's a guy that could fit really well in their defensive scheme.
Here's the thing about the defensive tackle draft. It's not a big defensive tackle draft this year. Not a lot of big names. The only defensive linemen you see are some of these pass rushers. So I would say defensive line is a little weak this year.
Yeah.
To be honest. You could go into the free agency. You could pick up a guy like a Javon Hargrave. You could pick up maybe like a Matthew Ioannidis. He could probably play that 3-4. He's a little bit bulkier. He could probably play that 3-4 defensive end. Ashawn Robinson is a guy I would look out for sure. He's a 3-4 defensive end for the Rams, right alongside Aaron Donald. $8.5 million in AAV. That's a guy he's 20. He's about to be 28. So I mean, that's a guy you should go look out for. Bring Ashawn Robinson in. Play with Chicago and the Rams. You bring a guy like that in, defensive line's looking pretty good. And maybe get a guy like a Dean Lowry from Green Bay. He's a free agent this year. Poona Ford, 3-4 defensive end from Seattle. That's another guy you could look out for. Another big boy. So yeah, That's the thing about Jacksonville, though, is they're in the best spot out of these 4 teams, the other 3 teams.
And let's not forget, they're getting Calvin Ridley
They're
back.
getting Calvin Ridley back. That's I totally forgot about that. About the receiver room. Calvin Ridley comes back. You have Kirk, Zay Jones, and Calvin Ridley. I totally forgot about that. So you don't really have to, I mean, you could still probably say what I said, like get a third or fourth round guy at receiver, but yeah, man. They're looking pretty good. I mean, I can't. There's not a lot wrong with this team.
Yeah.
I want to pitch you this question real quick because our buddy, but Jules said this. And we're Bills fans. Do the Jacksonville Jaguars have a better roster than the Buffalo Bills?
So I think for something like this, you're gonna have to go position group by position group.
Okay.
So I'm gonna pull up the Bills depth chart, and we're gonna put it alongside the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Okay. All right.
So I have Jacksonville's here, and I have Buffalo's here. Let's start with quarterback, the obvious one.
Okay.
I'm gonna give the advantage Buffalo.
Obviously.
So let's settle that right then and there. Running back room. I don't know. I think I'm taking Jacksonville.
I'm taking Jacksonville.
Travis Etienne over James Cook.
Easy. We don't know if Singletary's coming back or not. So yeah, basically comes down to like James Cook, Nyheim Hines versus Etienne, Hasty. Those guys. I'm taking Jacksonville. I liked what I saw from Etienne last year.
Let me ask you this: wide receiver. Now, if you're asking for the single best wide receiver, it would be Stephon Diggs out of this bunch.
Like Stephon Diggs versus their best. So Stephon Diggs versus Christian Kirk, I'm taking Stephon Diggs.
But the receiver group as a whole, I'm taking Jacksonville.
Yeah.
They're most well-rounded.
Because you take a look at the Bills' receiver room, under contract right now is Diggs, Gabe, McKenzie, Shakir. You have Jamison Crowder, free agent, Cole Beasley, free agent, Jake Kumerow, free agent. And then the Jaguars, they have Ridley coming back, and we know who Calvin Ridley is. Christian Kirk had a very good year. Zay Jones had a pretty solid year as well. Then you have a guy like Jamal Agnew, who's a cornerback turned receiver, and he's out there, being their gadget guy. He's an asset on this team.
I mean, he's their Isaiah McKenzie.
Yeah, he's what we want out of Isaiah McKenzie.
O-line. I think I'm still taking Jacksonville. I don't have their rankings right in front of me.
Depends what they do with Jawan Taylor. That's what I say. I mean, their interior outside of Brandon Sheriff is a little sus. I mean, Ben Barch and Luke Fortner. But Cam Robinson is a solid left tackle. If they bring back Jawan Taylor, I'm definitely going Jacksonville. I think right now it's kind of.
We can call this one a wash.
It's kind of neck and neck. I will say. I'll say that.
Tight end. I think. I don't know.
Tight end.
I think it's another wash for me.
It's another wash. I mean, again, we don't know if they're bringing back. It's looking like they're going to bring back Evan Ingram, but I don't know. I mean, it's a wash too. Because here's the thing: is Dawson Knox had his spurts last year. I just think Evan Ingram was utilized more.
Yeah, he was being used as he should have been in New York.
Yeah.
Defensive line.
Now,
this is defensive line with Von Miller now.
This is the thing is though. This is two different front sevens. So
That's true.
The Bills run more of a 4-man front.
That's true.
Yeah,
I'll give you that.
Jacksonville runs more of a 3-man front. But I think defensive line in itself give me like interior wise.
Give me defensive interior. It's another wash.
It might be another wash. I might like for defensive line. It's hard because they're two different fronts.
So all this being said, the argument that this Jacksonville have a better roster than Buffalo.
It's looking like it.
It's when you put it paper to paper. Now a lot can happen in free agency and the draft, but as it stands right now, they have about even rosters. I think even leaning a little bit in Jacksonville.
I think interior, I might give the Bills the upper hand, but pass rushing wise, I'm giving it to Jacksonville. Linebacker wise,
Again, you don't know what's going to happen.
You don't know what's happening with Trey Edmonds. But, I mean, if you compare it to last year, Trey Edmonds, say Edmonds and Milano versus their interior guys. So, Devin Lloyd and Foyside Alokan.
Alokan led the league in tackles.
Devin Lloyd.
That's a name that you don't hear, but he certainly
promising
did that.
first-round pick from last year.
And Trayvon Walker, the number 1 overall pick last year.
Yeah, he's a pass rush. He's basically like a DN for them.
And then when you look at the Bills, they spent a 3rd-round pick on Terrell Bernard, who is buried on the Buffalo depth chart.
Yes.
So, we could go back and forth on this.
I'm giving the upper hand to Jacksonville, looks like.
And that's exactly it. It's a crazy thing to say, but it's true. And we'll talk about more of this on the AFC East preview, but I think if you're a Bills fan, you have to temper your expectations for this year.
Yeah.
And it's a little preview to our AFC East show, but temper your expectations for Buffalo this season.
Yeah, I'll only say this. Bills got him on safeties. I will say that.
If Jordan Poyer
stays.
If they don't.
Corners, I mean.
And Jordan Poyer was just talking about how he wants nicer weather.
Yeah, he loves Miami. Yeah.
Screw you, Jordan Poyer.
All right, Jordan.
Go stand in the sun.
Yeah. I like Jackson.
Enjoy the sideline, bud.
Well, of course, his sideline's in the shade, so if he goes to Miami, he'll be fine.
Yeah. He was in the sun.
So will Bills? I mean, I know this is, but I mean, the interesting thing is the Bills have a situation with safeties. So my question is for Jacksonville, like where are they when you look at their roster on their cap and everything? Are they under?
The Bills
are they where this is in AFC.
The Bills and the Jags
South.
are both actually $18 million over the cap.
So do they have do they have the same problem? I mean, are they got guys coming up on contract this year? Where are they with that
I think
challenge?
they're in a little bit better of a situation. They don't have as much key losses. Again, like
they're going to have to make some tough releases. That's going to happen.
Yeah, there are only 2 big starters
restructuring
that are leaving are Jawan Taylor and Evan Ingram. They're starting tackle and tight end.
I think they're in a better situation than Buffalo.
They are. With the Bills, you got Poyer and Edmonds leaving. You just got a lot of uncertainty. Got starting guard Roger Saffold leaving, starting running back Devin Singletary leaving. I mean, Jameson Crowder was slated to be our starting number 3 until he got hurt. So, I mean, you could even consider that. I think Jacksonville is in a better cap. I don't know about cap situation, but like roster to cap ratio.
It looks like they're losing less on their roster.
Yes.
And that's the thing. Looks like they're losing less. So the stability of moving into another year with consistency is, they don't need 4 games to get the new guys acclimated to playing.
They're more set up for the next couple of years, Jacksonville, than the Bills. Yeah, I will agree with that. It's just that the Bills right now, a lot of uncertainty, but Brandon Beane just has to, and I know we're not talking about AFC East, but just real quick, Brandon Beane needs a lock in this year.
This is a make or break year for this organization.
Yes. And, news coming out, Leslie Frazier's taking a year off from being a defensive coordinator.
That we didn't cover yet this week.
Yeah. He's taking a year off from being a defensive coordinator for the Bills. They texted him, why? He said, just taking a break.
All right.
I don't know what that means, but a lot of speculation means that he is done in Buffalo but not done in coaching. It's kind of like a lot of people are saying it's like a respectable –
like a soft fire.
A soft fire, like mutual part of ways. So, it's very interesting to see. It's going to be interesting because the Bills what do you do? I mean, do you go and get a new defense coordinator? Do you go and you just have Sean McDermott run and actually call plays this year?
As it stands right now, Sean McDermott has gone on record to say that he would be calling plays if that is the case.
And that's going to be big for, decision-making in this organization moving forward because we haven't seen him call plays yet at all.
Right.
So that's
the last time I think he actually took the playbook over from Leslie Frazier was in 2018 when they were getting smoked by the Chargers.
Yeah, that was
Allen's first game.
Yeah, I remember that. Well, I mean, we talked about it before. After the season, like in the postseason episodes, I mean, I'm okay with this happening. If I'm going to be honest, I'm not a big Leslie Frazier fan.
But my thing is though, now what? All right, he's gone. Like
So
I
do you
said, now we're in a
think
situation-
they're going to, because they hired somebody to the assistant
Al
to the
Holcomb.
traveling
Holcomb.
secretary, or it sounded like the
He was
longest.
the interim defensive coordinator for the Panthers this past season.
Right. There was some conversation that this was somebody they had looked at before.
Yes.
So this was somebody they wanted on staff at a previous time.
The
so
Carolina Buffalo pipeline continues.
yeah. So
Carolina Bills.
so do you see McDermott just being the defensive coordinator and the head coach?
I think-
Do you see that this other guy will suddenly become the ad
I
hoc
feel like you could
defensive
see
coordinator?
another Al Holcomb interim defensive coordinator position in the future. For him.
Well, here's the thing: is you can say promote Al Holcomb to defensive coordinator, but it doesn't mean he's calling the plays.
Right.
You could still
Good point.
Yeah, McDermott could still be head coach and just call the plays on
You
defense.
see it
Is
happen a
McDermott
lot.
on any pressure to step up the defensive side because he's the head coach? Does he? Is there any conversation that do you think? I mean, obviously we don't know. But I can theorize a conversation where he gets called into a meeting with Bean as well as the Pagulas, and they're like, "Listen, like our defense, we spent a lot of money on this defense, and we didn't. And this guy's, whether
And we lost
he
like
was
30%
asked to
of our
take a year
defense.
off, or this is the nice way of letting him transition out, but you're the head coach, and I mean we see that in Kansas City that sometimes Andy Reid calls the plays. He's not just walking around with a headset. Some weeks he doesn't. Some weeks he does. And I think when you're the man in charge, if the pressure's on you, then maybe you should be calling those plays.
Yeah.
And I think, and it's just some of these situations like the 13 seconds game with Kansas City, and even like this past year with the Cincinnati game, I mean, that was an both sides of the field, all three assets of the field collapse. So,
And I think that's on him. That's on Coach McDermott because at the end of the day, his is the name with the biggest letters on the door office, right? So this could be a course correction that is kind of putting him on the spot.
yeah.
Definitely.
That is, as we just mentioned, I think the seat warmers for this Bills organization,
that's right.
like McDermott, Bean, these guys, the car seat warmers turn on to the first level.
That's
Oh,
right.
for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, hot seat. You mean the hot seat?
Yeah, the hot seat, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I agree with that. I think you're right on with that. I think that no one's saying, hey, I mean, and I don't think they're like, you're on your lap, but I think that there's like, listen, you made the championship game. First you made the playoffs. Great job. Then we made the AFC championship. And then what happened? Like, that's kind of like
Back-to-back divisional exits.
some people feel like and I would say it would be a fair assessment that the last couple of years we can talk about
His
the reasons
nickname
why.
now is,
Lots of things. But I think that some people are, we need to see what's going to be different.
They're calling him McDivisional.
What?
They're calling McDermott McDivisional.
Can't make it past the divisional round except for one time.
I will say back in the 90s, the funny thing when we went back to this crap, and I mean, this is dating myself, but that was kind of the problem that a lot of us felt with Levy. That he had a great culture. We liked everybody,
Couldn't
but
win you the
he
big game.
couldn't. He gets you that certain point. Like, why couldn't he win the Super Bowl? Why did it seem like he get to the Super Bowl and he lose control of the team? And yeah, well, he made it there, but there was that same. He went to a higher level, though. Admittedly, he got through 4 championships, but there was that same conversation. I remember after the second Super Bowl, like, why is he still the head coach? Maybe we should have a different head coach. And to this day, like, that's a conversation my dad and I had. Like, maybe if they would have gotten a different coach, maybe could have got those guys, wrangled those guys because of the bickering bills and all that stuff, and Thurman losing his helmet and all this crap we've heard about for 30 years. But there's that same conversation. I don't want that to happen, so I'm wondering if some of those same conversations are being had behind closed doors with McDermott.
I think they are.
Everybody loves him, so they don't want to, like, alienate the community. But at some point, the community is going to be done with him.
Yeah.
If we don't have I think it has to be a step in the right direction this year. I agree with you about the hot seat. I think it's level 1.
Starting level 1 of the hot seat, man. So yeah, as I just think I'm really intrigued to see what's going to happen with this defense. I really want to see, was it Frazier? you know, is this going to be a different defense we're going to see? You know, more aggressiveness, more passive. You know, it's going to be a little interesting because you didn't really know up until like the Super Bowl. That Black Monday is what they call. You know, that's when all the coordinators are going to fire, the head coaches. You know, and the belief was that everybody was staying. And then now this news comes out that Frazier's not coaching next year, and now you're like, oh, interesting.
Well, like I read an article the other day online about the amount of teams that use the check down and how much the percentage of check downs. Like they were talking about the changes in the way teams are passing now, and that the long pass is dying in the NFL. Like it's significantly lower. More and more teams are just playing what will they give us? Mm-hmm. And the Bills don't play that. The Bills have one of the lowest checkdowns in the league, and that's why we're not using our running backs, just for draws and things like that. Like there should be more checkdowns. But then on the same side, the statistics were that Buffalo allowed too many checkdowns. Like I read, they were kind of comparing teams, and and one of the arguments would be is that maybe Frazier's just, he's getting too old. You need a younger guy that kind of understands the analytics of the younger game.
That's what happens.
So maybe we'll see but Dorsey seemed to let's throw the bomb. So I don't know. I think that's too funny. I think that again, that's an interesting thing. I think with the defensive change, but also to see if they change even that. Like if I know that statistically the teams are going to the check down, maybe Buffalo. I think Buffalo has to come out looking a lot different. They can't come out with the same 12 plays. It's got to look significantly different next year, both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Right.
Agreed.
I mean,
I agree. It's just, I'm just intrigued to see what this defense is going to look like. I really want to see, was it Frazier or was it not Frazier? So that's all I want to know. But
would you change the way they play in terms of the positional? Would you
switch to a 3-4?
Yeah, would you switch to a 3-4?
Not with our roster that we have now. No, I mean Ed Oliver, I think is too small to be an interior guy. I mean you could play Vaughn. He's played outside linebacker as a 3-4. But yeah, I mean you'd have to basically play Rousseau outside, Von Miller outside. Re-sign Edmonds, have them be the inside guys, and then you'd have to go out and you get to sign a couple big guys to play the 3-man. I could see it happening because they use a lot of 5 DBs, and 3-4 is a lot of more. You could a lot of 3-4 linebackers, like the outside linebackers, they drop back in coverage. So it's more of like a pass friendlier defense. But I don't know. I think they should stick with the 4-man front, but maybe go to a 4-3 more because they run technically a 4-2-5.
Yeah.
So if Edmonds is leaving, maybe you got to go with that 4-3 look. I don't know. But I think you stay the 4-man front. I think it's just more of defensive play calling and you either got to be more aggressive. Or,
if I'm Buffalo, what would Would you reach out to Arizona and see and kind of kick the tires on Isaiah Simmons?
See, Isaiah Simmons is like a Swiss Army knife. I mean, you could put him anywhere except for D tackle. Mm-hmm. So I mean,
and I think that's something the Bills need. They need that flyer, especially if they lose Tremaine Edmonds. They need that flyer on defense, that guy that can stretch the field and be there at any point in the play.
Yeah. I agree. Isaiah Simmons, I liked him coming out of college, so he would definitely.
You could even fill that nickel role. The Bills love to play the big
nickel.
So
when you guys are preparing, when you're going through these divisions, when you say, well, the Bears are going to pick this guy or whatever it might be, do you look at it from the standpoint of what you would pick or what you think they'll pick?
Both.
Because I honestly feel like that the last couple of years the Bills have not drafted well. I feel like we haven't been aggressive in terms of what they should be doing in terms of trading and looking for those players. You guys have talked about it before. Mm-hmm. So I'm just wondering, is there, based on some of the things you've guys just been talking about, or even just looking at if Tremaine Edmonds is leaving, if Poyer's leaving, is that a priority for them in the draft? Will that that's obviously not going to. Do you think that'll happen before the draft? Or will it happen after that? That's that's what I'm wondering, what your thoughts are. And not just the Bills, but just in general, how does a team Is a team's goal to get those changes made before
they'll-
the draft,
I
or
think with this organization and the way that how notable that these free agents are, this will be said. They'll know exactly what they need going.
so
into
we'll
the
know
draft.
when
Yeah.
we see the draft.
We'll know.
That's
we'll
right.
know in probably
Like if they
3
draft a
weeks.
safety, right, then we're gonna kind of know that. Oh, wait a second.
Well, this deal will probably be done before the draft.
So you think that-
free agency opens up in a couple weeks?
Yeah.
So,
But
the
that
draft-
doesn't mean it's always. Sometimes it's
That's true. Players wait.
leaks out.
you know.
But with Jordan Poyer and with Tremaine Edmonds, I think a deal gets done, whether it be with the Bills or another team.
You're gonna find out the next week or two.
Yeah.
That for sure. But that's basically how it works. Is like, you had the free agent frenzy, that period, and then basically
The
who
tampering
yeah.
period.
Do you think we're going to be part of that? You
I
think
feel
the
like
Bills
no.
are going to be part of that, or are they just going to
I
They
feel
don't
like
have
you
the
had
play
cap
it
to-
safe?
They don't
again?
have the cap to do it.
If they
That's the
somehow
problem.
rework some contracts and they open up some more space, then yes, I think they should be. But as of right now, they can't be. But you just got to rework some contracts.
Well, they can be if they've decided, or they really kind of already see the writing on the wall that we're not keeping Singletary, that we're going to let Poyer go because he's already seemed like he's saying he wants to go. Like there could be that too. Like they may have already said, listen, just do what you got to do. Good luck to you, because we're not matching your offers. I mean that's a thing, right? I mean they kind of tell guys ahead of time, like, good luck, thank you for your service, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
and
definitely
I don't
does
have a problem with that. I mean, teams can't stay the same. Like this is a funny thing in Premier League, and I'm a big soccer guy, and like a big thing that comes up we talk about is teams that are stagnant. Like a team that was incredible last year looks terrible this year. They're in 10th place. Why? Because they made no changes. They didn't shake up their lineup. They didn't win the thing they needed to win last year, and this year they haven't made changes. And I feel like that is true for any sport. And you can't just keep putting out the same. I think even a championship team has to shake up their roster the next year. You have to make a change. Something has to change. Maybe basketball you don't, but I think any other sport, you've got to keep fresh because I think people lose their hunger. Like Kansas City's not the same roster that they've had. That roster's changed a bunch. It
They're
keeps
constantly
changing.
changing.
Yeah. I mean, and you can say Belichick, that was something he knew how to do. He didn't keep guys, we love you, but you don't work here
Business is
anymore.
business.
Because to keep winning.
That was my biggest thing after the loss to Kansas City, the 13 seconds game, is you went out and we talked about it a couple weeks ago. I mean, you got Von Miller, cool, but that's one guy. And you just kind of relied on a little you brought back Jordan Phillips, Shaq Lawson, good depth signings, but really not gonna make too much of an impact on this team. And then you go out and you draft these guys like James Cook, Khalil Shakir, and you don't use them. Khair Elam, you don't use them. So it's it's underutilization. And it's also I think they thought that, we played so good in that divisional game that we're going to just do the same thing that we did last year and it's going to work. But,
Well, I think they thought Von Miller was the fix.
Yeah.
Right?
And
he was until
he
got
wasn't,
hurt.
but injuries happened.
But was one guy, I don't know, one guy? And I know they had a lot of injuries, and that's everybody talked about, but everybody has lots of injuries. And they lost other guys too. But maybe some of those guys coming back,
It's also the
100%.
changing of coordinators, too, from Dable to Dorsey also, I think, made a little bit of a difference. But, I wasn't the biggest Dable guy, to be honest, when he was in Buffalo. But,
Yeah.
what are you going to do? Do you guys have anything else to add for this episode?
That is all I got for today.
Yeah? Maranto, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think you guys. I like the way you're breaking this down. I think it's kind of a neat way to do it. It's funny. I don't know a lot of the players, so it's kind of hear what different things team and it the.
Hear me butcher some names?
Well, I was a high school teacher for 31 years, so you don't even know what you're talking about. So you go to you look at a name and you look at it and you be like, okay, this kid, I'm just going to say his first name, Robert, and then once in a while you just you'd go to the last name because you knew you were going to and then usually I would just own it. But no, but you're right. No, but it's interesting. I think that there's some weird things the Jacksonville conversation about when you think about Jacksonville's rosters. I never thought about that. I didn't Like that's who told you, who made the point?
It's
about
our friend Jules. He was on the...
I think that's an interesting observation. That's an honest observation. I think that's a pretty cool observation. And Jacksonville's like, but they've come a long way in a very short couple of years.
Very silent moves.
And that they're doing it in a smart way. Like it seems like it's very analytical in terms of their war room is doing it right. Because they're actively getting guys coming in, and like you talked about, Buffalo drafted a guy, and where is he? And there's a couple guys like that, and that's not, it's not just Buffalo, but everybody's got to you got to make. That's why everybody seems to be talking about the same thing. Like what they do in the off season is going to tell us how hungry this team really is, and from management straight on down. Yeah, what do you think of the renderings of the new stadium?
They look good.
Build a dome. It looks nice. I'm a big dome advocate. I will say this, just because, especially after that playoff game I sat through, when it was torrentially heavy snow and I was just very, very miserable, and you could see.
The good news, you will be warm.
I will be warm. The fans will be warm.
If you look at the way it's constructed and everything that I've seen, it's actually much better for the fans. It's just, but it's really not doing anything for the field, and it is a grass field, from what I heard too. It's definitely going to be a grass field, which I think
they're starting to switch over grass because of and you saw with the Super Bowlers issues with the turf too.
Don't get me started with that.
Oversaturated with water.
I still think that was a scam by the NFL.
Yeah.
I'm a conspiracy guy, so I'm like, I think they you wanted your turf, you wanted grass, here you go, here's your grass. Even though we had great grass there before, and we put another piece of grass on top of it. What was wrong with the grass that the other team had been using all year? You didn't have that problem. It just seemed like it was almost like, oh, I thought you guys wanted grass. Oh, now you're complaining about the grass? Don't get me started.
That's all we got for this episode. This is episode 34 of the Big YAC podcast. We'll be back next week and we'll break down another division. Haven't really decided yet, but we'll be doing another division next week. Same Big YAC War Room. We'll be having some more spotlight interviews coming out, some more reels. Do you have anything else to add, Nico? You're good?
That's all I got.
All righty. Well, so that was episode 34. AFC South is completed. Check in with the Combine. Good luck to Nick Jones. Good luck to Caleb Murphy. Farley was on my tongue again. Caleb Farley. I'm sorry. Nick Jones, Caleb Murphy. Good luck to you guys. Good luck to everybody in the NFL Scouting Combine. Hopefully, you guys all do good. Thank you BICP Radio Network. Thank you Emerge. Thank you everybody.